I'm going to talk a little bit about facts today, and I'm not expecting you guys to fully retain what I'm saying. Not that you're not capable of it, but I just want to set expectations that I think putting you at a computer and letting you run through some examples is a better way to build upon it. So today, the intent is just to give you guys an overview that we can then build upon. Is that reasonable and fair?
Sounds good.
Okay. So facts is simply a tool, same as, and this conversation could be held the same way in regards to P21. It's a tool for us to execute business, service our customers. And when we better understand how the tool behaves, then we can A, keep it sharp, and B, get it to do what we want it to do. When we try to do it, get it to do what we want to do, when we don't understand the characteristics of how we're trying to get it to do what we want it to do, it creates sometimes work when a headache for us on the front end or more work on the back end. So to me, everything in facts, and you could apply it to P21, starts with understanding the basics, the core. It starts at an item level. You have to understand how items behave to get them to do what you want them to do. And so that's what I wanted to do today is talk a little bit about items, and then we'll have a follow-up lab, if you will, where those of you that aren't as comfortable can have your machine, and we'll give you some examples and let you practice a little bit. Fair? Perfect. So 5 different types of items, I'm going to call it. I might be wrong, but that's what I think. I'm going to hit the first one quick, and you guys don't use it as much, but in fact, there's what's called a buy resell. And a buy resell is when there's a project, it gives us the ability to create a ticket or a PO that is basically a job address, like job number 1234, category 3, line 1. And what it does is that is generally used for buying large quantities or configured stuff that's going from factory A to job site B, shipping straight to the factory. And it's generally non-returnable stuff. It's generally we're moving paper, and that was created in facts for rep firms that generally don't do inventory. It cuts out receiving, pick tickets, payables in the traditional format. It just bypasses and gets rid of all that, and it basically says, I'm going to let you cut a PO on paper. It's like handwriting a PO to the factory, send me $1 million. Then when they send you $1 million, you can pay it and bill the customer. When you get the invoice, you say, oh, yeah. So you pay the factory and bill the customer all in the same swoop. It took all the standard wholesale distribution steps out of the equation. So it's very project-based, direct ship, and it behaves very easily, very flexible, but it's really bad to use for things that may be returned or may come into the warehouse and things like that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, but if you hear a buy resell, it's really meant for moving paper and getting paid for it. I'm going to order a giant custom air handler, and I'm never going to return it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to receive it. And when it gets there, I'm just going to, send them a bill. All right. That's the first one. The next one is what both softwares have it. They call it different things, but it's an uninventoried item. So if you think about the name of that, that's exactly what it is. An item that is virtual, an item that does not have to be bought, an item that is not going to be counted on our shelves. So when we go to do a physical inventory, are you going to go and count labor? Say we bill someone labor. Are you going to go find labor stacked on the shelf? No. If we have to do a price concession and give someone $70 because something happened that they got the product that was dented, are we going to buy that $70 back from them? If we give them $70 with a -1, are we going to stack that -1 on the shelf? No, we're just going to take a hit. We're just giving them $70, typing in the description, credit for dented furnace. It doesn't inventory. It doesn't stack in the system. It doesn't have to be bought. So you can use it for labor. You can use it for a lot bill. I told you my quote was $5,000. You got all the furnace, you got all the grills. There's a remaining balance of bill of $700. No item. I'm just going to use an uninventoried AD and air distribution or whatever we want. And we're going to bill you $700. We never had to buy it. It's not something I had to buy, cut a PO, sell to them. It's just I type it in, type a description, and bill them. So a good way to think of that is something that's a virtual item that we're selling a service. We're selling something that didn't have to be bought or inventoried. Uninventoried in fax is how they really do a buy resell. From the custom part of fax is it just pops onto a ticket, creates an uninventoried item to bill a customer, never had to be received or anything. It's just they use that as their way to do different things in the custom part of fax. So uninventoried, virtual, didn't have to be bought. You can start a ticket, put air distribution, put a description, bill them whatever you want, be done, and it doesn't take it out of our inventory. It doesn't put it in our inventory. The next one that I want to get to is the fun one. Real fun. Temp items. So I'm going to dive into this a little bit, and I'm going to show you a couple other things, but that would be accurate. But let me give a little bit. If you understand how it behaves, the characteristics, that's my goal, then we can understand, you know what? Yeah, I like to have temp items at my disposal, but I'm probably using them too often for too many things that make my job harder. So that's my goal today. It's not to get after you. I've lived it. I've seen temp items shut off for years. And I'm the one that said, no, we want some flexibility. But I think because I've been less involved, it's not on me. I made a ton of mistakes. And so if I can share those with you guys and teach you about how it behaves, we can make this work smoother. So your answers are accurate. Temp items should be one-offs, non-returnable. You hit the button, it's like a firecracker. Customer, when I hit send, it's coming to you. And if it's not, it's a pain in the butt to create a real item, or, it doesn't build any history. It's hard to warranty it. It's hard to return it to the vendor. It's hard to have it be damaged or to move it from customer A to customer B. It just doesn't behave. It's a fast, quick temp item, but it's not real flexible. Once you buy it like a temp item, you create it on the ticket, it makes you put it on a PO. Once that PO is received, you're committed to bill that to the customer. So you have to bill the customer to get that to flow through. And then you have to create a whole new item if it needs to come back and go to a different customer or you made a mistake. It's just messy, right? Once it's received, if you didn't know the right cost, like if you don't know the actual cost of a temp item and it gets received, with a normal item, these guys can go and like say, I know they said it was $10, but it was actually 12, and then go to a variance on a normal item and put $12, and it goes and changes the payable, it goes and changes the PO, and it goes and changes the ticket, even post invoice, post everything. It corrects it. So when we get the invoice and they want us to pay $12, they can do a variance. Yeah, I had the wrong price in, and it'll correct the ticket, the GP dollars and everything. Whereas a temp item, if you have the wrong cost, there is no correcting it. We just have to do journal entries from an accounting level, and it's messy, it's clunky, it's ugly. So if you don't know the cost, it's bad. If you don't know if it wants to be returned or something happens, it's bad. So what I would teach you guys is use it as a tool that you have an arrow in your quiver, but I believe once you see some of the other things we're going to teach you guys, you're going to use it far less. Another thing to be aware of with temp items is they don't exist. They don't get counted. They don't show up on our count sheets. So I've told people both, I think it's automatic if it puts the asterisk in front, but if not, I've said to put it in. When it comes into the warehouse to get received, it acts like it's inventory. It wants them to receive it. It wants them to put it on a pick ticket and ship it. But they don't see it in their cycle counts. They don't see it in their inventory. If an auditor came in and did inventory, they don't see it. I've used temp items. A lot of people have for Broan fans. And the problem is they get put on the shelf and you got 8 that are temp and 8 that are stock. And when we go do cycle count, we just say, we got 16. Well, we really don't. We have 8 that are in this virtual inventory of temp items and 8 that are in our stock. And it's just a mess. So I've told people to put the asterisk so when it comes in, it like gets a big red sticker on it saying, guys, this does not exist in our standard inventory. If you did count sheets, it wouldn't show temp items. You have to run a custom report to show you temp items. It's just a mess. So what'll happen is if you're doing a rooftop, say it's a one-off because say the rooftop has some different configuration than what we stock. The problem is people can walk out there and see this rooftop and sitting in the yard and not think to look in the temp items, and then say, well, I got this rooftop and it just doesn't show it's here, and they sell the dang thing and we shoot ourselves in the foot. So temp items are good, but they should not be used. They're not real flexible. And we're going to talk about it a little bit. So let's give an example of maybe when you're quoting fast. So it's hard to adjust the cost. It doesn't show up in inventory. You can't move it from ticket to ticket. You can't return it to the vendor easily. You can't, even though we say we're treating it as a non-stock or whatever, once you start it, you got to finish it out through the customer. And it actually creates more work for us when everything doesn't go exactly as planned. So it's there. We want people to be aware of it, but it should be highly configured stuff, one-off, non-returnable, dynamite, and the cost. And it's like, it is going to that customer. It's not going to sit in our building forever, few and far between.
Uh-huh.
So then I'm going to go to the next two items. The next one is a standard non-stock item and a stock item. So just by definition or name, stock is the system's going to learn. It's going to try to forecast. It's going to try to learn our history, and it's going to say, we are going to stock these on our shelf to sell to our customers. Simple as that. If it's non-stock, it's saying they're in here so people can use it to quote, order, sell. But it's going to be, I quote it, I need it, I order it, I sell it. The system's not going to try to replenish. The thing about non-stock to understand is it won't let you just go put a PO and order a bunch of non-stock if they're not on tickets, because you're bypassing, like, you got to understand how it behaves. It's the system saying, no, these are supposed to not be ordered unless they're for a job. So sometimes we may have to understand the behaviors of the items. So stock is developing a history for replenishment, let you order it, not job specific. Non-stock is saying, I'm going to let it be in the system. It's easy to use, but it's ticket specific. You want to order it, here you go. But say a ticket does get deleted that had a non-stock, or we choose to bring something back from a job. We bring a Braun fan back that we traditionally wouldn't have stocked. You can take that non-stock that's sitting on the shelf and sell it to someone else, whereas a temp, you couldn't. The temp, you never see. Nobody sees. It's not creating a history. So that's the differences. So stock and non-stock. Now, what I'd like you guys to do, like, we have the ability to import items, both in P21 and in FACS. Today's more focused on FACS, but the same things. Once you learn these same behaviors, it helps you have different conversations with either software. I want the operations team to be importing and maintaining pricing and part numbers and things as much as possible. I don't want you guys to have to dive in and add items all the time, but I want you to understand it so that you can. I want you to understand it so you can give feedback, like, we should add these items. But what I thought today is showing you how to add an item and then showing you how to quick add an item, and it may replace using so many temp items. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen if that's reasonable and fair. All right, so I'm in FACS and I'm in the test company, which is 99. That's why everything's red. So just be aware it's a great place to practice. I'm going to drive through the menus so you can see where we go. But let's say the goal is we import and the ops team adds items that we need. That's the ideal, right? But today I'm showing you if you needed to add it yourself, so you understand what they do and what they need. So I'm going to inventory control, file maintenance, and I go to item file maintenance. So IFM takes you right there, but I wanted you to see how to drill there and how to quick go there. So and just so you guys know, like the goal today is an overview, and then next week or soon, if those of you that think, yeah, I want to do this, I want you guys to do this with us so you can run it, you can drive and learn it. Because once you learn it, you're like, I got it, let's go. So there'll be some actual application of this right away. So Pete has emphasized, like, let's search the system and let's make sure it doesn't already exist so we're not creating something twice. So I'm going to hit search in here, and I can, let's hypothetically, so the way I've done it, right, wrong, or indifferent, was certain things use the actual part number of the manufacturer, and other manufacturers that have shorter part numbers, I've tried to put a code in front of it, our own code, and then their part number, so it's easier for us to search. So once you guys learn the pattern of maybe my brain years ago, you can make heads or tails of it. We can clean it up, but if it has a long part number, it's probably just going to be their part number. So Mitsubishi's items, the characteristics of an item is we can have 20 item numbers. So Mitsubishi's actual equipment is really long. So it's always exactly their item number. Whereas Brown has shorter lines. So if I want Brown, the goal was you could go to and hit BRO dash, and you could just quickly see what's in the system. But if it's Mitsu, I just did their whole part number, except for parts were shorter, MIT dash, that's all their parts. So the more you can learn how my brain works, we can fix it in the future. That tells you how I was doing it. So Burco, BRO, BRE dash. Now you have, and then everything after the dash is their exact part number. So if you guys don't know that and people are adding, say this 12001N, I want you to quickly check the BER dash, but also check the 12001. Like, what if someone forgot Matt's brain and his pattern? So go to the go-to and check down there too, is something that Pete was saying. Like, just check different ways so you can see it. Maybe it'll bring it up without the BER. So if you do the go-to, it's exactly in the, if you did the 12001N, it wouldn't find it up to the go-to. But in the keyword, it looks throughout the word, where the go-to starts at the start. As soon as it doesn't match, it drops off. The keyword and the go-to before you start creating the stuff, just because it's going to be easier. So we're not, if you see things that are wrong, let them know, but just search a little bit. Fair? So once you've identified it's not in there and you wanted to add something new, if I type something in here, BRO dash 25896. That's the new part number. So I'm doing our pattern and a brand new part number from Brown. It's exactly Brown's part number. Once I hit enter, it's going to say, this doesn't exist. Do you want to create new? I don't want you guys doing this every day. I just want you to see it so you understand it. Then it gives you the description. And remember, the description, just so you guys understand, 30 digits is the max. So I want you to understand that, like, you have to be creative if you're putting descriptions and try to pattern, hopefully the ops team's doing this, but just know they're getting creative to keep them to the set length. So Grant is great. Description 2. Description 2, we don't use, but you could use it. Alpha is just taking the description and making it in a searchable way. The vendor, we're going to put Brown. The purchasing line we use the purchasing line with Mitsubishi. So you can search, and we only use it really with Mitsubishi City Multi. So you just leave that blank. The item class, right now, pretty much everything's all class. So I'm kind of going through this fast, but here you have a question. Is it stock, non-stock, or uninventoried? So this is where you could create an item that we want to use over and over again that's uninventoried for a lot bill or something. Not that we need a bunch of those, but this is how you do it. Do we want this to be replenished? Well, we're going to say, no, I don't want this to be replenished. I just want to use it on this quote, and it's job specific. This serial lot here is the traditional core fax serial number that's very exact. and the cost stays exactly with that serial number, and it has to be precise. We also created a PO serial number over here that's just, it says, yes, I want to capture the serial number, but I don't want it to affect the cost of it and the sell of it. So it's easier. If you're not one digit off, it doesn't break the machine. It just captures it. It doesn't lock it up if the serial numbers aren't captured correctly on the way in. So just know most of the time we use this button over here. But if you click that button, it's going to tell the guy when they sell it to scan a serial number. But it's not going to say it had to match the serial number that came in. We'll get into that. It's a whole separate conversation. But generally, this serial lot is neither. You can say serial lot or neither. We just leave it at neither. This active, like Pete can go in, or you guys can go in. If you see a bunch of items that aren't used or discontinued, he can go and unclick the button and make it inactive, and then we don't see it anymore. Doesn't waste our time. And then PO serial, yes or no. It's just literally just like that. All right. Then we go to the sales portion of it. Taxable, yes. Miscellaneous, we never use. Default prices, we don't really use. The price class, we could put them in a bunch of price classes. We could put it in a Brown price class, and then Pete could command pricing in the future to, like, hey, I want to up the margin on this whole line. Right now, I don't know that we're using it as much as we should. We should talk about it. And then you just kind of quote type. This one is where, remember, we put the BRO dash in front of it. This is where you put the vendor's actual part number to print on the PO. You get rid of the BRO dash. So that's why when you see our POs, it gives you a vendor number and R number. They don't have to match, but this makes it so it goes into their system. We can then add companion items, and then we can add PO companion items. Say it was a Mitsubishi cassette. We always want, when we order on a PO, to add the grill. Always. We can do sales order companion and PO companion. And then once that's done, the item's in here. Then it goes to, how are you going to buy the item or sell the, how are you going to stock it? How are you going to price it? How are you going to sell it, cost it, and buy it? So we're going to hit a plus, and we're going to say, how are we doing this item? By the each, by the foot, by the hour, by the piece. We're going to say by the each. We're going to stock it by the each, price it by the each, sell it by the each. Say we're going to buy it by the package, sell it by the each. This is where you put the conversion in. We're going to bulk buy it. Every time we buy it, we're buying 100 in a pack, but we're going to sell it by the each. That's where you put, I'm going to buy it by the case, sell it by the each, and then we'd add more columns down here so we could get the behaviors we want. Most time you don't worry about it, but if we were buying by the pack, selling by the each, this is where that work would be done. And then you tell it, convert it, divide it by 10 to get the each. So we buy it by the pack, sell it by the each. That's where this happens. Once that's done, little X, hit done. Now it's saying, how do you want to cost it? How do you want to factor your cost? So generally we use a list price. So say it's whatever, there's a list price. Now, do I want to type in a fixed price, or do I want to use the list price times a multiplier? Well, I want to use the list price times a multiplier. So I change it to list price, and I go to multiplier at 0.30, and now it's giving me my cost. So you guys can learn. It's really important. Like, you can game the system by putting just pounding in a cost, but then in the future, if someone uses it and the list has changed or things that can get us in trouble. So this is a way you guys understand what's being loaded into the system. Pete can import this, and Thomas, he can import this in a button and bring in all of a line fast. But now you see what it's doing. So now when I say, how is it costed? Now I can come down here and say, how do I want to price it to the customer? Do I want to do a fixed price? Do I want to go off list price, or do I want to do manual cost? So I'm going to use manual for this example. So I've already told myself how I'm going to get list price times multiplier. And so I'm going to take my manual cost now, and I'm going to say I always want it at 1.3, 30% over that manual cost, always. So if the manual cost, if the multiplier goes up, so does our sell price. It just follows. We could do it off list price. If the list price goes up, so does our sell price. There's different ways to do it. It's different with different vendors. Some vendors move list price. That's how they move. Whereas Copper, I think, moves multiplier. right, Pete?
Right, correct. Yeah.
So if we were off list price on copper, it could get us in a pickle fast. We want our sell price to always be moving with our cost. So, and then we can create this standard price. Well, then we can also say, I want to create 6 more levels. And that way, if we say this customer's a level 6, they get a lower margin. Fax has that capability, so does P21. So we're not using it that complex, but we should get to where we are, where there's different levels. Once we have that done, we hit done. And then it says, what warehouses do you want this item to be available in? Generally, we're just going to hit all 01, 02. This doesn't show 03, which I think is Denver because it's the test company. It's not updated. And then is it going to be located? How's our mess? How's it going to get restocked? We just generally tab through that, hit done, hit save, and then remember 25896. So now we've created an item inquiry. We hit F2, we go to Brown, and it's the 25896. That item's in there for everybody to use, and now you see every warehouse, and it can be reused time and time and time again. I just tell you guys, because we don't have a ton of people, there's so many moving parts, just double check things. Like Mitsu, your gut's going to be pretty accurate. Mitsu's always going to be accurate. The lines we don't use as much, just quickly look and say, hey, is the multiplier right? Is list price right? If you see something that's wrong, you can correct it or let someone know so they can look at it. But just double check things, because I created an item years ago and Mitsu didn't give me a list price. They just said, Matt, we don't know. This is brand new water source. You're the first to sell them in the country. You're shipping them straight from Japan to you. So they just said 30 grand. Okay. So I put 30 grand as list price times my multiplier of 1. We sold them. Awesome. Great. Wonderful. Pete, I don't know if you remember this, but then 7 months later, someone does a search and finds that part number. And they're like, awesome. And it's a sold job, like it's Weber State. All we have to do is put it in a quote and we get to work. And it was a big job. And so what multiplier did we get on Weber State? 0.32.
Yeah.
But the real list price, once they published it, was like 60 grand. But they put 0.32 on the job. So we now took 30 grand times 0.32 and just ran with it. And I want to say it was near $100,000 mistake. That's what I mean. I've lived it. I've done these things. So just everybody chip in and just double check things. I don't want to have to do it long term. You're going to get to where I know pricing is just dead on Mitsu. I don't need to double check that. I know, but if something seems off, I'm going to double check it. But other lines that we don't use as much, just do a spot check. Does this look right? And then we can, and just let him know. So that's a good way to look at it, Pete. So now this item exists and you can do a quote with it. It's all golden. But that took a lot of time, right? You guys are moving fast. You don't want to do that every time. So I'll show you guys another way that you can move faster in a ticket or in a quote. So now we're in the item level. And I'm going to jump. You have searched to see if you can find it with the go-to. You've searched with the part number and you can't find it. Right? So I'm going to use this example with Broan. So say you want to bring in a Broan, and so I'm going to use Grant's Broan dash 25896 or whatever. There we go. That one right there. And I'm going to add one of those. You guys did the work and created that. That's awesome. But say there's another thing in Broan's catalog that's not, you've searched and it's not there. And normally we would just use a temp item. But if you know it's a catalog item number, you know their list price and their multiplier, we can either import it or you can add it once and it's there for everybody to use and build a history off in the future. So if I know that it's not there and I've already done the search, I'm going to go, it's the 789456. And so Broan's exact part number. And I hit enter, the system says, do you want to add as a temp item or a quick add? Normally you're doing temp items, correct?
Good.
But I'm going to show you a quick add. So what a quick add is it is letting you take a different item in the system, mimic its characteristics, and add it faster so that it has a history and behaves as an item, and it maybe can save us having to do it. So say a train rooftop. If we had a train rooftop set up in the system that was non-stock, that had all the certain characteristics, you could grab that rooftop every single time and use it as your template and start creating a library of each of these exact train rooftops so we have a history of them and you can reuse them in the future. You don't have to redo it. It can speed you up. It's not temp items. They behave differently. They can get received into the yard. They can be counted in inventory. But so it's asking me for a deep, and I'm going to say, I know that I want it similar. I want it to behave like that Grant is great item. It's non-stock. It's not serialized. I just want it to behave like that. So I can grab this item and say, I want this new item to be similar to that item. And I hit OK. So it takes me back to this item file maintenance looking screen. And now it has the new part number and it pulled over the description. But say this one's very similar, but this one's the good 100 CFM Grant. Same vendor. I just tagged through it. Same item class, same GL, same everything. Oh, okay. It's non-stock. It's not serialized. Oh, okay, perfect. I tabbed through it. It's already each. It's set up to buy and sell the same way. I don't have to go through all that. It's already saying my costing and my markup I want to match. All I need to do now is this one's actually $1,400 list, but I don't want to mess with the math. I don't want to mess with how we buy it and sell it. It's the same multiplier, it's the same family. Or if it was different multiplier, I could correct it. I hit save. How do we want to inventory it? All warehouses, straight from the factory, back order. And then I hit save and exit. And now you've added an item that everybody can reuse from here forever that fast. So you saw how long it took us to put the item in and go through all those screens, but a quick add is designed exactly to do that. Quick add. And so we should, any part number or anything that we want to behave a certain way, we should quick add way more than what we currently do. We should use quick adds far more than what we use temp items. The only thing we say is if you quick add an item, let Pete know so he can then go into it and just make sure it's fine-tuned and it's accurate. You don't have to wait for him. You can move, you can order, you can take care of the customer, but it's going to be there forever so he can go make sure. You know what? Hey, I know you said you searched Brian, but that part's actually in there 4 different ways because someone forgot BRO, someone forgot the dash. So we can merge those together and just kind of manage it and keep it accurate so we don't have someone put a list price of 30,000 times 1 like I did and then someone else use it like, you know. So we don't want people creating stock items just randomly because the system's going to start telling us to order it. But you guys should, the quick add should be your best friend. And you start learning like Brone. Like I know exactly a Brone line or a train rooftop or a certain part that I want it to behave like. And then you can just mimic that part and then just answer a few questions and you're off and going. And then you can return it to the factory. You can take it off a ticket, move it to a different customer. It just behaves a lot nicer and easier. It can be counted in physical inventory. It shows up on our count sheets. It can be transferred from branch to branch where a temp item can't. Just it acts as an item because it is. I'm looking at Brone's catalog. I don't want to talk to Pete because I'm in a hurry. I got to get this done. 256789. Boom. I tab over quick add. I grab the default item of the Brone 25. And if I don't know, say I don't remember it, I can just hit search and go BRO. I know it's there. Oh, I know that one's a non-stock. That's all I'm caring about. I don't want to grab a stock one, but I know we use this one a lot. Or you can grab a stock one because you know it's accurate, but then just make sure you turn yours on non-stock. You know, it's the exact fan, but this is the 150 CFM. Tab through it, non-stock. Okay, perfect. Pricing. This one's $1,500. Same multiplier. my costing, I'm not even worried about inventory, same as everything, hit save, exit. That's better for everybody. It's faster than a temp item, and it's going to give you way more flexibility. And then you buy it for the customer, they don't want it, or something happens, we can choose, hey, it gets damaged. We can do a negative back from the customer, a negative back to Brome to get a credit. Like this one showed up with a bad motor. Oh, you know what? Just give us a negative PO and buy another one in negative and they'll wash. Well, items just act better. So, all right. Well, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it was a start in the right direction. If we wanted to look at like an actual example of your rooftops, we could do that to see what it needs to, if we're going to create items in here, it needs to be unique enough to that item. I'll just share a quick story of what we used to do that was bad. So we thought it was awesome. We created non-stock dash captive air, non-stock dash rooftop, non-stock dash renew air. And then every time we wanted to order it, we would just use that one part number and then retype the description and the cost, put it on a PO. But what was happening was the system was seeing all these non-stock captive airs, and they didn't care if it was an $8 part or an $8,000 unit. If it got moved off a ticket or whatever, the system would then look at first in, first out. So it'd think that part is like $8,000 for one and $8 for another. So we were billing a part to a customer and it's putting an $8,000 cost on their ticket because the ticket and the PO weren't linked anymore. We've made all the mistakes. If you grab the wrong item and someone doesn't maintain it with the right list price and they put a cost times one, you can get burned. But if everybody just double checks non-stock and you quick add and just start learning the patterns, I think we're going to get to where in theory, we shouldn't be having to quick add as much. The more we do it, the less we're going to have to. So, and then we can import. If you have a spreadsheet, if we have Brome's pricing, we can import it. And we need to get a little bit more refined, but we can actually import catalog numbers for quoting purposes. And then you can convert them to items later if you want to start ordering and selling them. So there's more in facts that we haven't even tapped to where, say we don't want to bog it down with 1 billion items, but we want to use them to quote, we could start importing way more items to use for quoting purposes. And then when you go to convert it to an item, you're converting a catalog item to a real item in facts. There's things like that we can start to turn on and tweak a little bit. So, okay, well, hopefully this is helpful.